So last week we talked about sila and virtue, part of the path, which has to do with how we speak and how we act and how we work. Basically our behavior. And so much of that is dependent upon being able to know why you're doing what you're doing. And not knowing why and asking why are you doing what you're doing is on the wisdom part of the path, the prana, which is called right intention. The wisdom part, there's the samadhi, the sila, samadhi, and prajna, which is the virtue and meditation, and the wisdom part of the Eightfold Path. And the wisdom part is right view, or right thought, and right understanding, and right intention. So we talk about the wisdom part, which gives us our sort of reason that puts the depth into your practice. Like you can go through the motions, you can sit here, you can do meditation, you can, fulfill the samadhi part of the path. But it can be really shallow. Like your meditation can be, shallow, lacking depth. Because you're not fully motivated, you're not really fully to the heart, doing it in order to become liberated from self-centeredness and from the negative qualities that so often we, feel possessed by, and to fulfill the goodness of human nature. But that really is what we call the right intention. When you can fill your actions, your speech, your work, your effort, your mindfulness, and your concentration, all the other parts of your path, with a really enlightened reason, a noble reason for living. Otherwise, we're kind of just going through the motions and trying to make it through as an individual in this sea of sort of, choices. There's so many choices. But do we pause? And that's what, the samadhi part, that meditation aspect, and that's why in most traditions, but in Zen very particularly, Zazen, sitting meditation, is cardinal. It's really central to the practice. Not because there's something so inherently special in Zazen. I mean, there is, but the point is to stop the mad rush we have to go through and achieve. To press pause on the sense of always putting yourself forward. Dogen says something really beautiful with this. He said, to put yourself forward and experience life is delusion. To have life revealed, realized through you is enlightenment. That's a real, shift. And that really gets to the heart of what this pause is that we call Zazen, that we call meditation. Instead of putting ourselves forward in each situation and thinking, this is what I want, this is what I need, and this is what I'm going to achieve. It's stopping and being an observer. What is happening here? And what does it mean in terms of my path? But the first pause and the heart, the opening of meditation practice, is that simple question: what is happening? Like, what's going on right now? Putting yourself, as Dogen says, to put yourself forward and, experience life is delusion. What he means by that is, instead of asking the question, what's happening, we think more in terms of, what do I want? Going through by virtue, by the force of our wants, means that we're projecting ourselves onto reality. So life is really, instead of thinking that we're perceiving life, we're really perceiving ourselves superimposed on the world around us. It's like we're sort of a projector, and you're projecting yourself out there. Meditation offers us that pause to say, instead of always projecting myself on every situation, like, what do I want and need from this? It's more asking the question, what is this? What is happening? What am I experiencing there? What do I see? What do I taste? What do I hear? What do I feel? What's going on right now? Before the judgments come on full force. That sense of what's called in Zen beginner's mind. But really, it's even before that. It's the not knowing mind, or what the Buddha calls the unconditioned. The unconditioned goes right back to the source and says, before all my conditioning of what? What do I mean conditioning? All my self-conditioning. Everything I've been brought up to believe is necessary for being happy, which is really about me and my wants and desires and fulfilling them. So the unconditioned is pressing pause on all that sense of self. Say, okay, can I meet reality on just its terms and not on my terms? It's an investigation, it's an openness that this practice can really invite, or that we invite by engaging in this practice. This is what the Buddha meant when he defined right intention. It's also called right resolve. Like resolve, like what is my, purpose here? He defined it in the sutras as three things. Right intention is renunciation, freedom from ill will, and harmlessness. Those are the three qualities with which the Buddha defined right intention. And that's a real interesting.
Please again.
Sorry, my voice is really weak tonight. Renunciation. Renunciation? Vitur. You hear pronunciation? Yeah, I'm not pronouncing my words very well. He probably wanted good pronunciation too, so that we wouldn't say the wrong thing. That's right speech. Right speech is having proper pronunciation. I should know that of all people. So, renunciation. It's an old word, out of fashion. Okay. So renunciation, freedom from ill will, and harmlessness. When we think about right intention, we usually think about all the positive things that I'm going to bring into this situation. Like, I want you to be happy. Like, we usually think metta, like you should be happy, and I'm going to bring so much goodness here. I want everyone to be peaceful and happy, and whatever goodness we want to bring in. So my intention is to do good in the world. But I think the Buddha was being a realist here, to say, before you can fulfill the good you want to achieve, you have to make sure that your mind is not clouded by all your really negative conditioning that yourself has, created. And that conditioning first has to do with the 5 hindrances. And ill will, meaning like anger and wanting to cause harm, is one of them. The 5 hindrances or obstacles to having good intention. Like, we want to have good intentions, right? But there's 5 things that Buddha identified as blocking our good intentions. There was sensual desire was number 1. Okay. And it doesn't just mean pleasure. Sensual desire means that whenever, we're usually craving strongly to only have comfort and to pursue comfort and to avoid discomfort. And that strong need sometimes gets us, or often gets us in trouble. And if it doesn't get us in trouble, it at least makes us ignore other people. You know? So sensual desire is one thing to notice. As like sometimes, it closes us down. When you're cold, when you're hungry, when you're tired, okay? When you're uncomfortable, we tend to retreat to ourselves. It's a natural thing. But we want to be more than just physical nature, right? We want to kind of push beyond that limit. So sensual desire is one obstacle. Ill will or anger is another obstacle. And we probably, each one of us, if you're honest, experiences that on a daily basis. Your mind is clouded because someone offended you, or you were just cut off, or something. You felt insulted, you felt put down, or you just felt outraged by some situation. Or it was more subtle, and there's some anger there, right? And it doesn't come out to this full-fledged, what he says, ill will, which is the desire to cause harm. But it's on the same degree. It's like a matter of degree. If we just turn that up, then it's going to turn into the desire that that person who caused me the anger will suffer, right? It's a matter of degree. So the better recognize that as the second hindrance. The point of identifying these obstacles to having right intention is not an academic or like an intellectual discussion. It's to notice when they arise, to identify them, and to recognize that they are an obstacle to the state of mind that I'm committed to. Clarity, harmlessness, and beneficence, or causing good for all others. One of the Buddha's statements in terms of intent was cease from harm, do good, and purify your mind. That kind of like is a summary statement of the path. The focus on the obstacles here is simply a practical way to be honest and sincere, and to know that having anger and having a pure or clear mind are incompatible. They can't coexist. Right? So it's not about artificially creating this goodness of mind, because a lot of people are really, seem to have goodness of mind until something goes wrong, and then they just melt down. Right? They just explode. You probably notice this. How did that person get so angry? Where'd that anger come from? Because it was unchecked. You have to notice its subtle appearances. Meditation practice is noticing the subtle pull of these 5 energies. Okay? How sensual desire, the attachment to comfort, the aversion to discomfort, pulls us out of a natural state of calm. How ill will or anger, raises very quickly. The third hindrance was restlessness. That restlessness or anxiety. Right? I mean, it's a common thing. Restlessness or anxiety also is experienced as boredom. When you're bored or you're judgmental, it's because you've lost your natural calm and your mind is seeking more. The constant need for more stimulation, which is so rampant now. I mean, so common now. We blame our screens, but that's an excuse. It's not the screen's fault that you keep looking at it, right? It's the nature of this hindrance, of this obstacle, to be constantly seeking stimulation and not to just look in and find some natural calm in your own physiology. the rising and the falling of your chest and stomach as you breathe, the sounds that are with you all the time, the touch of your feet on the earth. Why do we constantly need more? And Buddha identified that as the root of suffering. Dukkha is the constant need for more, or the constant aversion to what I don't like. So between attachment and aversion, there is dis-ease. Okay? So that's the third hindrance, is restlessness. Just notice your mind. The meditative practice is noticing again and again the state of your mind. Where is your attention now? Why are you not at ease? What is causing your dis-ease? Can you really be sincere and look? And it's not from an outside factor. I'll take being sick as an example. Right? All of us are sick, at least once a year, if you're like a normal person. So maybe you're not, but I'm sure you can remember the last time you're sick. There's physical discomfort. It's an obstacle, right? But if you don't accept it when you are sick, you're adding suffering to the pain. Okay, you're adding suffering to the pain. It's a natural process, going to go its way. What is the opportunity it affords you? To slow down, to observe discomfort, to notice the physical processes, to accept your mortality even, to accept weakness, to accept humanity, to notice how it connects you to all others, as a vulnerable person. So in fact, what seems as initially a problem actually becomes a possibility. It can expand your understanding of what it means to be here. But if you just see it as this is something I got to get over as fast as possible, because it's causing me discomfort and I have aversion to discomfort and pain, you're going to miss the Dharma. You're going to miss the Dharma, the teaching of this experience. So when we're asking, what is this? What's happening now? We're also asking, and what is the Dharma of this moment? What is the deep teaching and reality that can open if I pay attention? This is the intention of our practice. The fourth hindrance is dullness. It's originally called sloth and torpor. I never know what that means. But it is being dull, being unmotivated. But having even in meditation, when we have this hindrance, it just means you're really spacing out and not paying attention. Samadhi is not just being calm. Samadhi is calm focus. Don't forget the focus part, right? The part of the meditation on the path is right effort, right concentration, right mindfulness. It's not just right calm, right? It's not just calm. It's focused awareness. And if you don't have that, okay, and you don't notice that your mind is, distracted, that's dullness. That's dullness. And finally, the fifth hindrance, or the fifth obstacle, to having a pure mind. And when I say pure mind, I mean originally what the Buddha means when he says, cease from harm, do good, and purify your mind. Purifying mind means renunciation, that original word that I used, which came from the Buddha's definition of right intention. Renunciation means renouncing, letting go of these obstacles. This is not, a necessary part of my personality. This is part of the conditioning that I am reinforcing by not being aware of it. But when you're aware of these obstacles arising, you are given a choice of where I want to put my mind. Do I want to continue with this condition? Or do I want to observe it arise, go back to my breath, and observe it pass? You have a choice, and mindfulness offers you that choice. But if you're not mindful of these obstacles arising, but you just think, I can deal with this, it's going to catch you. The fifth obstacle is skeptical doubt. A skeptical doubt, right? Skeptical doubt is interesting because we often think it's like being critical, like in a good way. Like you should question everything. And that's true. That's true, you should. Even the teachings, the Buddha expressly said not to take his word for it, but examine the practice for yourself. And does it, work? But not to take it because, he said it. And that's written in the sutras, his actual teachings. But skeptical doubt means not just that you doubt the teachings, but you doubt it, you cancel it, you reject it before you've done that test. Before you've done that test. First check it out and see, is mindfulness a practice I can have? Does sensual desire and anger and ill will and, dullness and restlessness and skepticism, what do they do to my mind? I mean, are they obstacles? Maybe they're not obstacles. Maybe they'll help me in some way, right? But before you reject the teachings, check them out. Because maybe they will help you and maybe they won't. Skeptical doubt is when I said, I can go it alone. Yeah, I can do this on my own. I don't need this. Right? That's one aspect of skeptical doubt. The other aspect of skeptical doubt, which is even more corrosive, is to doubt the fact that you can actually, awaken. If you don't trust the nature of your mind because you feel like this is too far beyond me, good for the Buddha and some really wise masters along the ages. But I'm just trying to get through the day, without completely screwing up. Like a little improvement is good enough for me. That's skeptical doubt. You're selling yourself short. You know what that means? You're limiting yourself in a huge way. Skeptical doubt as an obstacle means you haven't really trusted that your mind is Buddha mind. And without that basic trust, your intentions are going to be limited. You can only really want to awaken if you truly believe you can. So we have to notice when these obstacles, these 5 obstacles, arise, seem to create a wall in my mind, and most importantly, pass. Because whatever state of mind you feel is gripping you now, if you look closely enough, like anything that is uncomfortable, whether it's physical or mental, it has the same impermanent nature as anything else. The most basic teaching of the Dharma is the one of the impermanence of all conditioning. For all conditioned states are impermanent. So observe closely, fearlessly, and you will see the most difficult situation change before your eyes. You will be observing the truth of impermanence as you look. I remember once on one of my first retreats when I was in Thailand. I was on this island, and there was this couple leading this retreat. I don't know if anyone went there. Steve and Rosemary, they were from Australia. And they were on this island, I forget the name of it, but they'd been there like 20 years, and they ran this retreat center. And we became friendly. I was there for a couple of retreats. And he told me the story about this one monk he knew who went to a cave. And Steve asked him, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing in the cave? And he said, I'm going to meditate for 5 years in this cave, and then I'm going to go out and save my mother. And Steve said to him, well, how do you know she's going to still be alive when you come out? Like, what can you know? I mean, what he was asking was, are you sure you're doing this for her? That's what he was asking him. Yeah. It seems like real noble. I'm going to go face the wall like Bodhidharma. I'm going to face the wall and I'm going to become enlightened, and then I'm going to be able really to help everyone. And that may be necessary. And that may be his path. But I think Steve was just wanting him to simply ask the question, really? Like, is that really, what's most necessary in this situation? Is your intention correct here? Meaning, is your mind free of these hindrances? And from that place, are you making the decision? And intention does not exist in a vacuum. At one center I was at, a Zen center, most of the day we were spent doing work. Part of it was meditation, but then we had lots of hours of just doing work, like laundry and stuff, sweeping and gardening and all sorts of work. And I had a job for a while of just folding sheets. That's what I was doing. I was doing laundry and folding sheets. And the person who had been doing that for longer than I had said to me as the instruction for folding sheets, she said, intention is everything, but presentation is important. And I found that very helpful. Because the other extreme of intention is to think that, it's only about intention. And it's not. Part of the path is how we integrate all of these, the Eightfold Path, how we see it as one wheel with 8 spokes, right? And our mind is in the center of that wheel, right? And out of your mind extends 8 spokes of this path, the Eightfold Way. And you should be spinning it fast enough that you don't even see the difference of these spokes. You just see one wheel. So if you stop it, you'll see intention, and you'll see speech, and you'll see action, and you'll see work. But while you're alive, it should be spinning fast enough that you don't see the difference between intention and speech. That it's one practice. And you don't see the difference between intention and, of course, mindfulness or concentration or effort or work. That is all integrated in this one just spinning wheel. That's our, that's our direction. But in the meantime, before we get there, we do have to, slow down and say, oh yeah, this spoke. I need to examine more closely. Suzuki Roshi said, renunciation, to end with this word. Renunciation is not giving everything up, but it's accepting that they go away. And I find that extremely helpful. You're not going to give up things prematurely. Right now I need my car, okay? I need my clothes. I need my bank account. With what I'm doing and the people I'm responsible for, I need these things. But while I'm using them, can I at the same time accept that they're not mine? They're not mine. And just like these states of mind that sometimes cause me, distress, and suffering, can I also say they're not mine? They're arising, they maintain, and they pass. So the renunciation is to accept that whole cycle. Things arise and they pass. And in that understanding, there really is freedom to maneuver more freely and more clearly. With, yes, I think, more ability to harm less, to do more good, and to have a clearer mind.